Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And by the way guys, a little warning, all the stories today do have updates, however, sometimes they might not be as satisfying as usual. But then again, that is, in my opinion, what makes legal advice so interesting, because it is usually real stories and not some made up stuff. Either way, the first one is titled, "My wife is threatening to take everything away from me." New account to hide my identity. My wife and I have been married for 4 years now. At first everything was going good, and then slowly intimacy between us faded away. In the past 6 months we have only had intercourse twice, and it was just dull, like she just wanted it to be over. Every time I ask her what is wrong, she blames me for never being around. I work a lot and love what I do, but I still am home every night and on the weekends, so it is not like I am never around. Well, yesterday I went to her employee appreciation party and seen her and another guy making weird eye contact. It was like he was saying, "What the hell is he doing here?" to her. I just knew something was up, so I told her I was stepping outside to get some fresh air. When I stepped outside, I quickly went to a window that has a view of the entire party, and I could see her walking over to him. They chatted for a good 5 minutes before walking away from each other. I went back inside, grabbed another beer, and acted like nothing happened. As the night grew on, she began drinking more and acting cold towards me, so I just went my way and talked to a group of guys that were also there for the party. During the conversation I was having with these people, I kept a close eye on her throughout the night, or so I thought. After going to grab another beer, I noticed she was not anywhere to be seen, so I went looking for her. After looking around inside and not finding her, I went outside to look for her, and that is when I witnessed her and that other guy kissing. My stomach dropped and I felt sick, so I just turned around and walked back inside to find the bathroom so I could splash water on my face. My heart was racing and I kept telling myself to go start beating on this guy, but for whatever reason something was telling me don't. I calmed myself down the best I could and went back out to the party, where shortly thereafter my wife walks back in. I told her we needed to go home because I was not feeling well, so we left. Once we got in the car, I just wanted to get and yell at her all at the same time. The vision of them two kissing was ripping me apart. Finally, after 10 minutes of silence on the way home, I said, "Are you effing him?" And of course she acted totally confused about what I was asking, so that is when I said I watched the two of you kiss. Her response is they are just friends, which I told her, friends don't go effing kissing one another at night while hiding behind a building. Well, that then pissed her off and an argument began. Within that argument she spilled everything. She told me she's not in love with me and does not find me attractive anymore. Her and this other guy have had a relationship going on for the past 4 months and she loves him. Then she says if I don't accept their relationship, then she will divorce me and take everything I have. My retirement plan, savings, grandparents' inheritance, house, cars, toys, everything. I told her that would be impossible and would never be granted by a judge, which she replied to by saying, "Try me." What should I even do about this? Can she really take me for everything? I want to divorce her like now, but not if that means her getting everything. Edit, I think I need to add that we have no children, thankfully. I also received my inheritance after we were married, but everything else I had beforehand. Gosh, I feel so confused, sad and angry. Never had a feeling like this before. Update, I want to thank everyone for their advice on how I should go about this, considering I feel ashamed to bring this up to my family because I don't want them to think badly of her. I am so confused and just feel detached from reality right now, almost like I am in a fog or something. Anyway, my wife came home from work this evening and said she was staying at a friend's house for a few days. I begged her not to leave, as I'm sure the friend is this guy she is seeing, but she left anyhow. Gosh, I would give anything to go back in the past and not work so much just to make things back to normal. I only wanted the best for us, so I did my best by advancing through the corporate ladder, which unfortunately led to long work days. So many memories from when we started dating when we were teens, cannot believe she would forget of all of them for another person. Edit, we live in Illinois. Update, I greatly appreciate everyone for their advice, it truly means a lot, thank you. Secondly, I recently found out she's not staying with a friend but actually staying with this guy for a few days. Does not surprise me as I already expected that. I absolutely adore her, but I just cannot help myself by calling her a bitch. Never thought I would be calling someone I love this word. However, I cannot beat around the bush on what she is. Come Monday, I am strapping on the plow and starting the divorce process by talking to multiple divorce lawyers. If I have to burn through my entire savings, then so be it. The funny thing is, I will get over this one day and use it as a life learning experience. However, if and when the time comes for me to start seeing other people, how can I ever trust them? Do I really want to give it my all and lose another 9 years of my life? I know not all women are like this, but trying to navigate who's good and bad just seems exhausting. It seems like I would just be playing the lotto at that point. Phew guys, I gotta say, I haven't read a story in a long time that makes me feel this bad. To be honest guys, please let me know in the comments what you think about these stories, because this one really does not make me feel good, I gotta admit. Anyway, a user in the comments said, relax, make a short list of potential lawyers and call them up and set up a meeting to discuss your situation. Some may provide this for free and some may charge. I would get 3 or so and pick one. She's not gonna clean you out. In the meantime, don't do anything stupid like trying to clean out your accounts or stuff like that. However, if you have personal things that are not replaceable, you should remove them and store them somewhere else, things that she won't notice. If it is something she will notice, you better wait until she's getting served before removing them. Don't tip your hand until you are ready. Also, you might go through and copy any bank statements, financial statements, tax returns, property titles, etc. It is not your fault, so stop blaming yourself. She is the one that created this problem, not you. Listen to your attorney. One last thing, she sounds a bit unstable. You should be very careful about being alone around her after she figures out you are filing for divorce. She may try something extreme, like filing false accusations of abuse and such, call the cops, and the next thing you know, you got DV charge and a restraining order. It is not easy, but you need to put the emotions aside and deal with this head on. And I gotta say guys, in this case I really tried my best to get a good update from the OP directly, however that did not work out for me. Instead what I did was I contacted every single person in the comments that ever commented on this thread and was hoping that someone might have contacted the OP for an update earlier and got something. Unfortunately, I got lucky and one person replied to me actually and told me that supposedly the OP did indeed get the divorce and the wife was not able to take everything away. I then asked what exactly was taken away, and unfortunately the person in the comments was not really sure, but from what I could tell, apparently the wife got part of the inheritance that OP got after the marriage, but other than that, it seemed to have worked out for OP. But then again guys, obviously I cannot really confirm if this is really true or if this person just told me what I wanted to hear, but either way, let's continue with the next story. And the next one is titled, Concerned the crows are circling around an elderly relative with dementia. Never thought I would ask this of all things, but I will say now, this is to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row. For the benefit of any location bot you guys might have, East Midlands, Lincolnshire. So, my great uncle has recently been hospitalized and we believe he has dementia. Good news is he can go back home soon. Bad news, even before this occurred, I've heard from my grandmother that her and a few other relatives are already dividing up his possessions. I've been told not to confront them on this to avoid arguments, but for now, besides the point. We are worried that we are sending him home only to have one of the group take things out of the house for their own collection. And indeed, we know 2 of them are known for get-rich-quick schemes. So my question here is simple. How can we best protect both him and his possessions? Not to sound cold here, but the last thing we need is him taken out of the house and home because they took everything of value. And this is without concerns to do with the will. For reference, we have already called social regarding his possible dementia. I was not party to the call, that is my mother. We also cannot really afford to be around him 24/7. Thank you in advance. If you need more information before, you can give me advice. I know people here are not lawyers, don't fret, then feel free to ask and I will do what I can to answer. And a user in the comments said, so basically his brothers and sisters who are also elderly and likely to shuffle off this mortal coil fairly soon as well, are all starting to pick over his trinkets? Whilst normally it would be a call to social services without knowing the family dynamic and the sheer fact that it is not the case of the cleaner stealing things or getting him to sign over his house, I cannot imagine they will be much interested. The two people best placed to address this are your parents and not you. They have known your grandmother a lot longer than you have and can probably persuade her to be patient. And guys, I'm curious, what would you suggest OP to do in this situation? If you have any good ideas, let us know in the comments, and furthermore, if you have watched until here, I would be extremely happy if you could like the video if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance. Update to the great uncle's story. So it turns out we were right to be concerned. It's been a mess, but things are settling down now, which is funny given I think the virus has got one of them causing havoc again. Regardless, let's begin. Mom brought up her issues to the doctor and they all agreed he has something wrong with him, but the terrible trio were determined to argue that he didn't. Things were getting interesting as they were taking him places for food and such, and it was actually fair, I will give them that. But as soon as the official diagnosis came out, things began happening. Mom got in touch with her brother / my uncle and found out she was named as the one with power of attorney in a document dated March of 15. So yes, he prepared that far in advance for this. We all talked and could not help but wonder why he chose her, and all we can come up with is he trusted her the most, which might say a lot about his siblings. She controls the finances and estate, and he will name her as executor. Second, the terrible trio kept trying to argue that he was fine until the moment it came out. Mom had POA and then they instantly changed to she cannot have, he's got dementia. They served her with court papers contesting the POA, naming both her and my uncle, and we got a date arranged. Number 3, in the background, great uncle got moved into a care home of their choice and seems to think he is minted as the place ain't cheap but is nice and accessible. Well, was, but the world changed. He's being taken care of now, so all we really have to do is take care of his finances and his home. Number 4, various events I won't list here, but the trio made numerous attempts to work around the POA. Indeed, getting Mom locked out of helping great uncle, we ended up having to talk to the bank manager who directly authorized the transactions himself. A bank book has gone missing along with 1000 quid in a mysterious payment. We've all got the same theory, but a theory is a theory. Number 5, we have a voicemail from one of them, and this one stinks the most as my brother did not invite too many of our family to his wedding. She was one of them and we thought we got along like a house on fire, effing and blinding at Mom about everything going on. She was quite shaken up at this, and suffice to say that fire has gone. Number 6, all this ran up to the day before the court case at 7 PM when we got a text from one of them stating they were dropping the case. I advised her not to take it at face value because people have lied before and will do it again, and when Mom and Uncle went in, the other 3 did not turn up, which royally pissed the judge off. While she put it a lot better than I will here, she respectfully had better things to do than deal with 2 old ladies and, I may be mistaken here, a young man, I've never met him, only know his name, and it is an arguably gender neutral name, looking to fill their pockets after someone is taken by a mental illness. And that brings us to now. We are still finding things out, but safe to say, we are finding out who in the family are family and who are vultures we don't want to deal with anymore. One of the trio is trying to raise hell against Mom over glasses of all things. I should have been contacted over this when it is not her concern at all, and indeed, I took the initiative to do it myself and I'm not complaining about paying. Mom and uncle are both closer than before. Apparently uncle claims he owes me a drink because he doesn't think she should have made it through this without him, but that is a tale on its own. And all we can do now is keep our guard up and shut them down as much as we can if they try again. All this over an old man whose family show pound signs instead of someone who needed help. And the next one is titled Harris County, Texas. Someone forged my father's name on the warranty deed to his home, transferred the ownership of property to their own name, and then sold the property to another family. As the title says, my 73-year-old father's house was stolen by a conman who either stole the physical original deed from my father or used the information provided by online public records search to create his own warranty deed. The conman then forged my father's signature on the guarantor line. It is obviously a forge, as I have a sample of my dad's actual signature from his driver's license and it looks completely different. Then, after having the deed notarized, filed it as public record. He then turned around and sold the home to another family and apparently pocketed the profit. Due to his failing health, my dad had been staying with my brother across town from his house at the time this was going on. I live in Colorado, not Texas, so I only found out because my brother, who does still reside in Texas, went by the house one day and saw the family living there. He stopped to ask what they were doing and they informed him that they had purchased the home for $45,000 off Facebook Marketplace. Guys, I gotta say, I've bought big things off Facebook Marketplace before, for example motorcycles, but I wouldn't buy a house from Facebook Marketplace. How about you? Have you ever used the Facebook Marketplace? Let us know in the comments. Either way, further, alarmed, my brother started looking for the original deed to the house but could not locate it. So he went to the county clerk's office and obtained copies of the chain of ownership of the property. Sure enough, we could see that someone forged my dad's name to gain ownership to the property in 2019 and then sold it to a second party 1 month later. Another interesting thing about this pertains to the notary public. Someone told me that if there is an issue with the notary, it might invalidate the whole transaction, so I searched for the notary on the TX Secretary of State website in hopes of filing a complaint. I searched by both full name and notary ID and cannot seem to find the notary. Is forgery of notary stamps a common thing? I am going to call the Notary Public Unit of Texas tomorrow to see if I can confirm that this notary is not a real person. I know enough to know that I will definitely need to speak to a real estate lawyer, but I'm wondering if, considering my dad's signature on the deed is forged and the notary public does not seem to exist, does it seem as though I may have a good case here? Would I have a chance in getting the house back? Is something like this going to cost a ton of money? I have some money, but not a whole lot. My dad has owned his house for 30 years and I cannot simply let it go. Yes, a real estate lawyer is going to be required. Yes, the attorney will be able to get the house back. No, it will not be cheap or quick. There is a specific type of suit that needs to be filed in this situation. Don't expect to get that money back. Deed fraud is massively on the rise in the last few years because grifters and scammers found out that nearly no county clerk is actually verifying anything when registering title changes. And another person said, I am a real estate attorney, not in Texas. I can only speak in general terms, but get an attorney right away in Texas. Check if your dad has title insurance. It will be in closing docs usually. They will cover all costs. I can say in most states, a forged deed is void on its face. The people in the house will not be able to keep the home, but you will probably have to go to court over it. Hopefully the people who bought the house got owner's title insurance from title company or attorney that closed it. The title insurance will reimburse them their money they paid for it and then will try to go after the con artist criminally and civilly. Source: 15 years real estate practice. Damn guys, you know, that is one of my fears, that people can simply forge signatures and do crap like this. Have you ever been in a situation where someone has forged your signature to do something malicious to you? Let us know in the comments. You know guys, I'm wondering in the future if there will ever be something that can simply replace a signature. I mean, I guess if you can do a thumbprint or whatever you call it, that could easily replace it, but I am not sure if that is widely used anywhere. Update to the conman's story. Update: like so many others, my financial situation is not as such that I could easily hire a real estate lawyer, although this is the #1 best advice given for this situation. When I originally posed this question in July 2020, my father was in a nursing home. As of yesterday, my father is now deceased. My question is, since he is dead but did not have a will, would that automatically exclude me from legally getting the house back? I am expecting to have the money to hire a lawyer soon, but don't want to waste anyone's time. And a user in the comments said, ultimately you should be able to get the house back, or the estate should, and the people that will be out the money will be the family that bought it. However, they might even be able to recover their money if there was title insurance on the transaction. And then the title insurance company would likely have to pay them back. That puts the title insurance company in the position of chasing down the conman and trying to recover the money. The point is, never buy property without title insurance. The small amount of money you save by skipping it is not worth it. Not only that, another person said, but any title company would have seen though this in an instant and you wouldn't even get near closing. Yes, get insurance, but also know that in the process of getting insurance, these sorts of things get uncovered by the insurance companies doing their due diligence. Landlord shut off heat, demanding $1,650 in cash by the end of today or we get evicted. But he's not our landlord, he's a man pretending to be our landlord. Okay, so first things first. Obviously, I should have gone to the police months ago, but if I did that, I wouldn't have such a wealth of evidence. We moved into a pretty rough neighborhood on the west side recently. As college students, this did not matter, since a bus stop in front of our apartment takes us to and from class every day, and the grocery store is a few blocks away. However, we started having problems immediately with our place. When we moved in at the beginning of August, we brought up some maintenance issues that needed to be fixed. There was a ceiling fan that did not work, a shelf that was crooked, our washing machine was not hooked up to the plumbing, and one of the bedroom windows now had a bullet hole and a wooden board over it. Obviously, these needed to be fixed, and our lease provides that the landlord has to pay for these repairs when the tenant gives written notice. Our landlord was out of town for a couple weeks, so we talked to the property broker, who said to come to him for maintenance issues and the like. Our landlord never came back from out of town. Every time we have tried to contact him, it has been unsuccessful. Our broker maintains his role as the man who collects rent checks and does maintenance, even though his name is nowhere on the property's papers. I ended up needing to text and call him twice a day, every day for 3 weeks before he sent someone over to fix our washing machine. That was the first and last repair that was made to our building. More problems that arose shortly after. In September, the locks on the front and back gate were broken off by gangbangers who were now using the front and back porch as the center of their drug operation. Rats started climbing through the walls and into our apartment. Moreover, our neighbors got bed bugs. After several weeks of rat problems, an exterminator finally came. A few days later, there were more rats in the building, there was a drive-by on the building by a rival gang, and the bottom row of windows in the building got shot out. Rats were now running in freely through the basement windows. In October, we get a bill from People's Gas and Electric. The building owes them over $4,000 in debt for the gas bill. Our landlord knows nothing about it. The thermostat was not working. We noticed when we set it to 90 degrees, but the apartment was 40 degrees. We gently pulled on the thermostat and it disconnected. The wire that was plugged into it just goes behind the wall and into the closet in the hallway. It is not connected to anything. We called 311 and let the city know we did not have heat, since we had been asking for heat from the man pretending to be our landlord for weeks. When they came out to inspect the building, they found every room in the building to be below the legal limit and turned on the heat themselves. The next day, our apartment was cold again. The man pretending to be our landlord left 5 voicemails on my phone within 12 hours demanding $1,500 in cash or we were not getting our heat back. He changes his demands to going to the bank with him, withdrawing $1,500 in cash and giving it to him in an envelope. We refused. The next day, October 10th, he pushes his way into our apartment, screams at us, threatens us with eviction, false police reports and false reports to the city. Then forces us to write him a check for $1,500 and leaves. We called our bank and cancelled the check the moment he left the building. We start talking about this guy more. Turns out he has been watching us for over a month. He would sit in his car down the block and wait for us all to leave to go to class, and then would use keys to enter our apartment without telling us. We have come close to catching him a few times, and once we caught him entering our apartment. Our friend was at our place playing video games. We all left except him, and a minute later the man opened our back door. He entered our kitchen and ran out as soon as he saw our friend on the couch. He got in his car and drove away. It actually turns out the actual landlord is a fake name on the property and is just on several properties throughout the city, mostly in low-income neighborhoods. Turns out that the man's friend has called several people using the same number, pretending to be multiple people. He has claimed to be our actual landlord named Frank, a plumber, Larry, a maintenance man, Byron, and a painter, Bruce. We have seen him in person and he has introduced himself as a different person to everyone living in the building. Then, in November, the man finally cashed our check that he forced us to write last month. He's furious that we cancelled it. By now, we've had discussions with everyone else in our building about it, and everyone is informed and has stopped payments to him. The man threatens us with eviction by tomorrow morning if we don't give him $1,650 by the end of today. We went to the police and submitted reports. They are charging him with electronic harassment, and we have photos of the damages around the property that he won't fix. We have high-definition video of the rats from 2 different cameras simultaneously. We have every voicemail, text, email saved and backed up. We have him explicitly threatening us over video and voicemail. We are not worried about getting evicted because we know he cannot do that, but we know that he has no problem entering our apartment and being confrontational. We have come to realize that this man is a cocaine addict based on his behavior and activity, and we are afraid that an electronic harassment claim with the police is not going to protect us from him if he shows up pissed and dusted. Our plumbing is overflowing now from the sinks and tub. He won't let us use any plumber except the guy who is calling himself Larry. Except the number that Larry uses is the same number that Bruce the painter uses and the number our landlord Frank uses as well. He's now aggressively calling us and leaving voicemails and texts telling us that we have to let him in to work on our pipes. We never contacted him and we don't trust that he's not going to bring the other man with him. So what do? Edit some notes about us as tenants. We always paid rent in full on the first of the month, allowed about 40 tour groups to view our apartment as he tried to remodel and sell the other units. Also, never caused any problems legally, never damaged any property or the building, locked in for a year lease. And users in the comments suggested you should talk to the administration at your school to help you find proper housing. Most schools have a person to talk to about finding housing and giving advice about where to find it. Or talk to a realtor. Or talk to friends at school. Seriously, talk to someone. These living conditions are terrible. There's no way they are going to improve. You are not going to fix this apartment building. I'm honestly surprised that it has not burned down yet with squatters in the basement and no heat. Get out ASAP before winter comes and you die in a fire, or die to a stray bullet, or die from being eaten by rats in your sleep. You overestimate the importance of being near a bus stop and a grocery store and underestimate the importance of not being dead. And guys, as you can tell, this landlord is obviously absolutely crazy. Maybe he has some sort of twisted multiple personality disorder, I'm not sure. However, how would you handle this situation if you were confronted with such an awful landlord? And the next one is an update to the landlord's story. Howdy, exciting news on our end. He just showed up at our apartment, we called 911 and they showed up before he could get away. He had his palm pressed flat to the peephole and was banging on the door as hard as he could. When the cops showed up, he and his accomplice tried to leave. I shit you not, he was in a disguise, glasses and a hat at night, and parked a block away so we did not see his car. Here is where things start to get screwy. The cops did not ask either of them to provide any ID at any point and believed them every step of the way. They forced us to let them into our apartment, which the man then proceeded to rifle through and damage. He tore through our garbage, spreading it on the kitchen floor, and started kicking our cabinets. I have the whole thing on cell phone video. I don't really feel like going into the details anymore, so here is a rundown of what happened over the next 15 minutes. First, he forced us to write him a check for $1,598. He denied having ever entered our apartment. He threatened us again with eviction. He went into every room in the apartment and searched them for contraband. He says he has photo and video evidence of us selling drugs to a lot of people who constantly come in and out of our apartment. For clarification, we are skinny ass white kids living in the hood where gangbangers are shooting each other every week over turf. I definitely would never try to sell drugs around them. He is completely lying. The only person who ever comes over is our friend in the neighborhood who comes over to play video games and watch movies with us. Since clearly the cops are not going to give a crap if he's lying to their face and getting physically confrontational with me in front of them, what should I do now? We are talking to an attorney downtown now about representing us because we are trying to defend ourselves against the false police reports he promised us. We are also going to an apartment tomorrow to see if we would want to move in there. It is in Wicker Park and has a effing jacuzzi. Am I missing anything? And a user in the comments gave further advice saying, hope you are cancelling that second check as soon as possible if you have not done so already. I would definitely file a complaint with CPD about the cops who responded when you called. That is a bit ridiculous. Hopefully the new place in Wicker Park works out well for you guys. And guys, is it just me or did the police act really strange in this situation? Why the hell would they let this guy in the apartment if he's just pretending to be the landlord and has no proof? Has something similar ever happened to you? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is the final update to the outrageous landlord story. So, the property was foreclosed several months before we moved in. When the other tenants moved out, it was not because their lease was up or anything, they were squatting in a foreclosed building. He never told us this at any point and still has not told us. Our neighbors used some real estate connections they had through their parents to find out everything about the foreclosure, including the bank that owns the property. The bank that has no idea anyone is living here. The guy who is claiming to be the landlord used to own the place before it got foreclosed. Now he's renting out rooms to people and trying to get the money in cash from the tenants without the permission of the owner. The only reason that the police believed he was the current landlord was because the bank has not changed the locks on the front door. He proved he was the landlord to them by using his key on the front door, which is apparently enough even without ID, even when 911 is called, because this man is disguising himself and attempting to break in. We got a really good lawyer downtown who is helping us properly break lease just to cover any possible shred of legality that the situation holds and then taking us to court. He's a friend of my roommate's dad who is doing this at a very low rate as a favor. He's extremely generous and we are so thankful for him. I understand how sketchy it all sounds. I even find myself questioning what is going on. That is why we started recording it. We just finished sitting through 17 minutes of footage of them in our apartment tearing through our things. After letting it sit for a day, the footage is all the more insane. Last night I could not sleep because I was so effing terrified that they would just come back again. Our female roommate spent the night at a friend's apartment out of fear. We took all of the advice in the comments with a grain of salt. This is the internet after all. One person defended me perfectly, saying, I thought the whole thing with legal advice is that all posts must be treated as real, no matter how ridiculous they sound, because some people really are that thick. And well, we are that thick, we are incredibly stupid, and the severity of the situation is partly our fault. We let this continue on for too long. We got intimidated by this man early on, and we are too confused and afraid to do anything about it. Besides, we did not know any better, we are all out-of-towners renting our first apartment. We have learned our lesson, believe me. Concerning proof, we lawyered up and he's having us restrict what we share with other people, especially online. I really want to provide some video clips so you guys can see the insanity that took place, but I want to clear it with him first. I will call him tomorrow when I get back from the court. I also have months of insane texts and voicemails saved that I want to share at this point, but again, I don't know if I should until I ask him. However, I've already posted pictures of the state of disrepair in the apartment, a photo of the rat from the surveillance footage, our plumbing issues, and his car parked outside of our apartment right before he pushed his way into our place. I cannot post his name or any photos of him, so I know that it makes it harder to believe because of that. The biggest issue with it sounding sketchy is because it is sketchy. These men are constantly lying and changing their stories on us faster than we can keep up with it. They behave in extremely suspicious manners and are illegally renting the place out. They are just trying to cover their own tracks on this, and that includes changing their story constantly and trying to limit our information. They still claim to have videos and photos of us dealing drugs out of our apartment, which is absolutely baseless. That is the one thing they keep bringing up though, it is really strange. The previous tenants were the gangbangers in the neighborhood, however, there's no resemblance whatsoever. So we are moving out and into a much nicer, slightly larger place in Lakeview. Turns out you can live there for the same price as in a rat-infested, foreclosed slum. We will be out hopefully by the end of the week. So, thank you for the advice for those of you who honestly tried to help, and if you still don't believe it happened, I don't know how to prove it to you and I'm sorry. But I know it's real and I know that this experience is going to leave a long-lasting effect on me as a person. Besides, what am I getting out of this if it's fake? Attention? Seriously? It's a low-profile post on a niche sub under a throwaway account. And guys, you know, funnily enough, when I first read this, I was like, what the hell? Legal advice is not a niche sub. However, this was actually posted years ago when Legal Advice only had around 10,000 subscribers, whereas now it has over 1 million. And still, at least to me, this story does not seem fake at all. What are your thoughts on this story? Do you think it could be fake? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Georgia bought house with cash, did not sign anything related to HOA threatening to sue over non-payment of dues. My wife and I bought our house in cash, no mortgage, October of 2013. When finalizing the sale, I signed documents related to purchasing the house, and I don't think HOA covenants were part of the deal. I cannot find any in my copies of the paperwork. Turns out there is a HOA in my neighborhood that just sent me my first bill ever for over a year of delinquent dues, addressed to someone who does not even live here. And I'm wondering if they have a legal basis for collecting those dues if I did not sign a covenant agreement. I have already emailed them asking for a copy of any document showing that I agreed to be bound by any covenants when I bought the house. If they exist, I will pay what I owe, but do I need to be ready for a legal shitstorm if they cannot provide any proof? And a user in the comments suggested, check the title, HOAs are generally attached to the title. You do not have to agree to the HOA. If the property is governed by HOAs, then so are you. It goes with the property, not the owner. Runs with the land, if I remember correctly. Guys, imagine you have enough money to buy a house with cash and then suddenly realize after the purchase that the property is governed by an HOA. One of the top 5 horror moments I can imagine. And now an update to the HOA story. It has been a few months since I last heard from the HOA, and I see how much you guys like updates, so I figured I would let you know where things are now. I've had some back and forth with the property management company that runs the local HOA. After my initial email, they replied saying that they did not have a phone number on file for me and wanted to talk to me about the situation. I declined, requesting that the exchange go through email to keep a paper trail. They replied with this: "First and foremost, I would just like to apologize for any miscommunications you have experienced. Just for a heads up, you will probably receive another letter by Monday, but no response is necessary as we have your email and are still researching this issue. I'm not sure if you are aware of this history we have had with this neighborhood. We started the property management with a local company who then sold the property to a national company, and within that national company we have had 5 different contacts in a very short period of time. I apologize for delay in getting you a final answer, but we are still trying and will hopefully have an answer for you soon. Sorry for the inconvenience. On April 1st I have not heard anything since, so I imagine the matter is closed. I sent a follow-up email today which reminded me that you guys might like an update." And the next one is the final update to the HOA story. It is amazing how much you learn about real estate law when something like this lands in your lap. So the Spark Notes up to this point. Bought the house back in October 2013 with cash, signed closing documents with an attorney and everything. Paid for a title search and title insurance. February 2015 received bill for unpaid dues, contacted HOA and attorney about it. Attorney said no HOA, they have no standing. HOA said they were working on it, would contact soon, never heard anything definitive about it. Recently I received another bill for unpaid dues, so I contacted the HOA by phone and spoke with someone about it. I was told by the HOA rep that their map shows that my lot is a mandatory lot. So I contacted my attorney and asked for all the documentation as well as a legal opinion on the matter. It turns out my house is in a different phase of construction than most of the other houses, and that phase, per the deed, is not required to join the HOA unless a consent form is signed. From what I can tell, the form appears to be binding to everyone else who will ever own the property until the HOA is dissolved. But if such a form was ever signed by anyone before me, it was never recorded. So my attorney sent me his legal opinion on the matter and the relevant documentation. I then forwarded that via email to the HOA contact I was working with, as well as printed everything out, the entire email chain and legal documents, and sent it along with a letter to the HOA office via certified mail, demanding a response within 48 hours of receipt or the matter will be considered closed in my favor. Here is the letter. My name, my address, my phone, my email, to whom it may concern. I have been in contact with your office via email about the quarterly fees your office claims that I owe. When I purchased my house at address, I had a title search performed and it turned up nothing saying that I would be subjected to HOA fees. However, I have received 2 letters claiming that I owe HOA dues and that they are past due, the latest total being over $1,500. This letter and all attached documents are being sent to you as final notice that I'm not required to pay these fees. I contacted the attorney that closed on my property, firm name, and they provided me with documentation that supports my stance. If your office is in possession of any documentation that contradicts the findings of my attorney, please forward them to the office of attorney at attorney address immediately. Failure to remit documentation within 48 hours of receipt of this letter will be considered acceptance that no balance is owed by the owners of my address for HOA dues and that further attempts to collect will cease until the homeowners sign the required documentation agreeing to be bound by the optional HOA covenants. Your office has had months to settle this matter as I first contacted you in February via email, and frankly, I'm tired of waiting on you to provide documentation. Any further contact on this matter that is not either a letter agreeing that I do not owe any dues or documentation supporting that I owe dues will be considered harassment and I will be forced to explore my legal options. That letter and all attached documentation was mailed on the 14th to the HOA's PO box and was signed for the following Friday, and I have not heard anything from them at all. So at this point I think the matter is settled. If they continue to try and collect their dues, I will probably have to get the attorney that closed on the house to send a cease and desist and go from there. And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.